Hello, Merry Christmas from me, Krista. I just wanted to do my own little version of the 12 days of Christmas. Oftentimes you see people giving gifts or receiving gifts during these 12 days. For me, today is the first day of Christmas, and I wanted to share some of the gifts God's given me this year. And a friend who encouraged me to do a little vlog style 12 days of Christmas. I'm a very reflective person. I'm constantly trying to contemplate how mysteriously He works. Going into 2025, I have a couple of regular New Year's traditions and then a couple of special ones. So my regular New Year's traditions would include choosing a word of the year, which I usually start discerning in October or November at the late time of the year. And I had landed on the word lower despite not wanting that word. And honestly, I tried to choose a different word, but really feeling that God wanted me to have the word lower. And then I usually write a letter to self at the beginning of the year. I give myself the first couple weeks of January to reflect on the previous word of the year and to transition mentally into the new word of the year. So those are kind of my usual traditions. But this year was kind of an extraordinary year in a way, because not only had Pope Francis declared this would be a Jubilee of Hope for 2025, but it was also my Jesus year. So I would be turning 33 in February. So lower was very fitting for that year. And as one of my friends said, that I made it my whole personality this year about being 33. And I think in my Jesus year, I just really wanted to share how the Lord kind of strung together every single month of this year. So for my 12 days of Christmas, I'll do 1 month per episode, and I'll try to keep the testimonies pretty brief, but I just want to document how mysteriously He works, the little invisible string that ties us to Him. And yeah, hopefully I'll share a little bit about how I've tried to be a gift to Him and to His children and my community. So going into the year, I had all these kind of things floating around in my head already about turning 33 and the word of the year being lower. We do a tradition at my Newman Center where I work that every person picks a card with a saint of the year and a virtue of the year. My virtue of the year was fortitude. So I was kind of also taking that into this year of 2025. And I had a feeling, I had kind of an inkling or an intuition that a lot would change in 2025. As 2024 was closing, a lot was already changing in my personal life. I was moving, and my coworker of over 2 years was leaving. Our executive director had left. So there was a lot of kind of new elements going into 2025 already. So I felt like in a way it would be a fresh new chapter, and that I had to really trust in God for this chapter, as you always do, but kind of in a particular way. Just to set the stage even further, I was also discerning a consecrated vocation, and I felt like I wanted to marry Jesus. And for 2 years, since I was 31, I had begged the Lord to help me be married to Him crucified. And I said, Lord, it would mean so much to me if I could marry You on the cross when I turned 33. I had no idea what I was praying for. I'll get into that as kind of the year progresses and I share a month per each episode. Anyway, so going into the year, that kind of just sets the stage of what January was looking like. So I spent the last 2 weeks of December moving out of my old place into my new place. Spent the first week of January trying to set up my new house, and also kind of set up the house of my heart for what 2025 was going to bring. I give myself a little time to do my Christmas cards, because the Christmas season starts on Christmas and lasts for 40 days in the Catholic Church. So I was writing my cards. I was distributing my cards at the beginning of the new year. And that's what I'm working on now. I'm supposed to be sorting these, but I can't multitask really, really well. I don't know how those vloggers do that, where they're multitasking while they're talking. Anyway, in January, I was distributing my cards. There's this picture I was going to show you that on January 7th, I had kind of departed from my room. I was walking down the stairs. I looked at my room and I said to myself, wow, I love this. I finally have things set up in my room in a comfortable way. So let me take a picture of my setup room and my word of the year. I don't have this one printed, but This is a picture I took on January 7th. I had started writing my annual letter to self, and I usually specifically reflect on the word of the year. So I'll write about the last year and my reflection of like what I learned from that word of the year and that thesis statement of my prayer life. And then I reflect on what I think it might mean to have my new word of the year. So I started writing that letter January 7th, and I left it on my bed, and I thought to myself, I'll finish this tonight when I get home. So I snapped that little picture that I just showed you, went to work as usual, was distributing my Christmas cards to the people that I was going to see that day. And I was trying to get one of my students to open their Christmas card. And she's like, Krista, there's kind of a lot going on. Do you know what's going on? And I was like, I knew there were winds and that there were fires, but I didn't know that the Eaton Fire had started that evening. Looked out my office window. I could see it. She showed me a picture from Caltech where she goes to school and she works. There was the fire behind the bell tower of my church. Spoke to my roommates. You could see the fire in the hills from my living room window. Saw some evacuation maps and saw that my address was included in it. And I was like, oh, I should go home and get a bag. And my Caltech students were like, no, don't go home. And I ended up staying on campus with one of them. This is the picture we took that day before that evacuation. I had to go buy a toothbrush at the gas station, and I just borrowed clothes from people. And the next day, we started a fire relief service and distribution drive. But we didn't know it at the time because that day I had chips in my office. I had drinks in my fridge, like LaCroix and soda. And we told people to come sit if they needed somewhere to sit. And we didn't know we were the first place to offer housing even before the convention center. But that's what one of the evacuees told us, who ended up staying there for the next week or so. And donations were coming in so quickly, even in that first week. And it grew exponentially, truly. It went from chips and soda to just within a week and a half or so, like taking up the whole campus, like our hall, every parking lot. It was humongous. It was humongous. And I have so many stories just to share from that time of the year, of that month, but I am not ready to share all those stories yet. But the overall gift from the Lord during that time was to trust in His provision, to believe in miracles, to kind of collaborate with people. And really the main gift of that time too was that even when so many people lost everything, they still wanted to give. And even from their nothingness, they were able to give so much. They would volunteer hours and hours of their time, including moving heavy boxes and loading cars with supplies. And they would say, I lost everything. I lost literally their whole house burnt down. And they would say, but I'm so blessed and I have to help. And it was from that place of like compassion, to be moved with compassion to that degree, that sustained me personally during those 19 days of distribution drives. And to go from just a small idea, that wasn't my idea, by the way, it was two other people's idea, to open up the parish office for people to sit and have a place of rest, is the way we described it. And I only offered chips and soda, and then it grew into everything that it grew into. The year before, I think, in 2024, I remember going to Knott's Berry Farm, and they had like the Boysenberry Festival. And they had, these large banners that said, Boysenberry Festival, celebrate the berry that started it all. And I reflected on that, and it was like somewhat funny to think of like a boysenberry starting the first theme park, and like the relationship of like berry and pies to like theme park is like so like out of the spectrum of thought that anyone could ever have. And I feel like our parish center and our chips and coffee and soda was the boysenberry, and then it turned into this great fire relief effort, which so many people were blessed by and benefited. And that was just that was probably the highlight gift of the gift of January, that God gave me and the way that I wanted to give myself to my community. I think of this often. And I thought about this last night at Christmas Eve Mass. We say God is love, as in the noun, and God is loving, like the adjective. But God is loving, like the present participle. And if you're like not a grammar nerd like me, the present participle refers to like things that are continuously, actively happening. And He is love, yes, as the noun, as a person that, obviously love was born at Christmas. And He is loving, and He is a loving Father. Holy Spirit is very loving too and consoling, but He is loving actively with His will, loving us in the present participle. In the present participle, He is actively, continuously loving us, sustaining us, like He literally holds the tension of like all of the ecosystem, that it is perfectly in place, that we could be sustained in it. He sustains our every heartbeat and our every breath. And like that time of the fire relief was Him reminding me of that fact. And there will be many more challenges that will come in the following episodes when I share. And as I reflect on 2025, like I, even at just kind of isolating that time period of January, that I knew God was working in a magnanimous way, the most magnanimous way that I ever could have thought possible in my whole life, truly. And to have given to the degree that I had given, and to think that I may never do something so fulfilling like that. I don't know. It's just beautiful. I hope that I shared that story well. I hope this is interesting to anyone. I have so many more stories to tell, so many more graces for these 12 days of Christmas. So thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next time when I share about my birthday month of February.